finals
week. But then, of course, like Auburn beat Memphis yesterday, or Memphis beat Auburn or Memphis beat Alabama yesterday. People went crazy like, oh, Memphis back. I mean, geez. You win one game and people go crazy. But it looks like we are rocking and rolling, folks. December 15th is here. And if you're a big college football fan, you knew for a while that this meant signing day, the start of the signing period for the class of 2022. And the Hoosiers made some noise. It's been a dark 4 months. That's not enough. No, about 4 months for IU football. It has. But a lot of the hard yards that this football program put in over the last few years paid off today as Indiana lands their best recruiting class in school history. We're going to get into that. Key players to watch out for who will make an immediate impact starting this upcoming fall. And of course, the Hoosiers on the hardwood, the basketball team. We're going to get into that and so much more here on episode 230 from the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for IU sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, I'm coming to you from the city of brotherly love. Your boy got a new job, moved into an apartment here, going to spread the Hoosier Sound love and the Hoosier Nation love here on the East Coast. How are you doing? Middle of December, holiday season, IU football. It was a better day than expected for Tom Allen and his staff.
Hey, well, one, welcome to the best city on planet Earth. Two, you're always welcome to become an Eagles fan if the Bears ever hurt you too much. And three, I've been doing better. This IU basketball team has tried to kill me this year twice now. And both times they've succeeded in absolutely killing my mood, and then succeeded the game after to brighten it up again. So going to be a long basketball season. Very excited to talk about football here for a bit for the first time in 4 months. And yeah, let's do it.
I'm not going to be an Eagles fan, man. My gosh, I'm not going to be a hater, though. I was telling some people here, Chicago and Philly don't have many rivalries. So,
No.
Eagles are
Flyers, I guess, is the closest to get.
Not even. Eagles are a friendly team as far as Chicago is concerned. Same with the Phillies, same with the Flyers and the Sixers. So I can't be too upset. Very interested to see. Somebody around here has a Wi-Fi name, an internet name that is very disparaging towards Ben Simmons, which is hilarious. But on more important topics, the Hoosiers currently have the 20th ranked recruiting class for the class of 2022, not for men's basketball, but for football. That's according to 24/7 Sports. Things can still change, but signing day is when things start to get set in stone, and the Hoosiers have recorded a top 20 class. It's fourth in the Big Ten. And it consists of 25 incoming players, 18 high school freshmen, 7 transfers, and there's one big name who's still left. Omar Cooper, 4-star wide receiver out of Lawrence North. He's still committed to the program. He still has Indiana University in his Twitter bio, but he has not officially signed that letter of intent. So we'll track that story as it develops over the next 2 months. But even without Cooper, 4-star recruits in this class of 2022. Dassan Mccullough out of Bloomington South, Travell Mullen, familiar last name, out of Florida, Jabron Payne, dynamic running back out of Ohio, as well as surprise defensive line addition Nick James out of IMG Academy. We've talked about how important Kevin Wright is on this staff. He's officially a tight ends coach, but having that connection with IMG Academy, we don't know this for sure, but it could have made the difference in order to get Nick James onto this defensive line coming into next year. Matt, plenty of surprises over the last week or two. Of course, a lot of guys had committed to this program back in the summer and even before that, but As far as the high schoolers are concerned, Nick James, the 4-star defensive lineman out of IMG Academy, Brody Foley, a fringe 3-4-star tight end that Tom Allen and staff got to flip from the University of Tennessee. Also a Tennessee flip was Benson Snead, a 3-star D lineman. Jalen Lucas and Jamari Sharp, 3-star speedsters. Lucas is an athlete who's probably going to start in the backfield. Jamari Sharp, 3-star defensive back who's got great speed as well. Your recent transfers, J.H. Tevis, a defensive lineman out of Cal who is Pac-12, all Pac-12 honorable mention. It's a grad transfer with 2 years remaining. Josh Henderson out of North Carolina and Sean Shivers out of Auburn, both additions to the running back room. Given all that information, Matt, let it soak in, let it absorb a little. Talk to me. Give me your high-level thoughts. Tom Allen says he still wants more. You could have more at quarterback. You could have some news while we're recording this podcast, possibly about a quarterback addition. Wants to add at wide receiver, wants to add on defense. Talk to me about your high-level thoughts on this class. Give me some names that stand out. How do you feel about the class of 22?
Yeah, I like the class overall. We have some offensive linemen, which is nice to say because I feel like the last couple classes we haven't had any really standout offensive linemen. Bray Lynch, one of the commits from Texas, 6'5", his quarterback is going to Clemson. So he's played some high-level football. Again, Westlake High School is also extremely football-rich area. That's where Quinn Ewers is from as well. Guy who transferred from Ohio State to Texas this year. Will be a true freshman. Carter Smith out of Ohio, another 6'5" guy. A lot of these guys I could see making it on the field this year. Demon Moore, another one. Another guy, 6'5", again. Really like these 6'5" linemen. I don't know if they just clone them and put them in random spots in the country, but they're all like basically the same size. It's kind of crazy. But I think the highlight of the class, again, speaking of another 6'5" guy, Dassan Mccullough as an edge rusher is going to be a physical talent that IU hasn't quite maybe ever had. Just an absolute specimen rushing the quarterback. And so that's going to be something that, look, last year we completely lacked. This season I felt like the defensive line, while they had their bright moments to start the year, kind of fell off as the year went on and injuries plagued them. They really didn't get any pressure at all, which made our secondary look very suspect. And it's hard to defend when the quarterback has 7 seconds to throw the ball. And the same goes for offense, right? Like it's hard to throw the ball if you can't
guy in your lap.
Yeah. So the line play this year was awful on both sides of the ball. Hopefully they are addressing that. I can see again with Dominic James, 4-star IMG Academy graduate defensive lineman, and then Dassan Mccullough, the highest rated recruit of all time to ever go to Indiana as an edge rusher. Well, probably, I think he might end up playing linebacker or the Husky position. I feel like in the end, because he's so talented and can just play everywhere on the defensive end. But still, he's going to be in the backfield. We'll see a lot of him. But have I had to go out on a limb, Nithin, and talk about the freshmen? We can talk about transfers in a bit because there's some really interesting transfers as well. But out of the freshmen, one, I have to give a shout out to James Mons III, who's from my area and a rival high school.
Okay. Oh,
and is going to IU. So shout out to him. Nice for him to finally join the good side instead of going to Vero Beach High School. We do not like the Indians over here. And then also shout out to my boy Jalen Lucas. Now, if you haven't heard about Jalen Lucas yet, I don't blame you. He's a 3-star recruit, 5'7" athlete out of Louisiana. Again, probably didn't know who he is, like most of the guys that aren't from the state of Indiana. If you're listening and you live there, or local kids wherever you live, Jalen Lucas runs a 10.6 100-yard dash, and his entire highlight package is him taking punts and kickoff returns to the house. That's just all it is. So this is a dude who's gonna come in, and I think from day one, because look, we saw with Matthews, DJ Matthews this year, you want somebody back there that's explosive, but you also don't want somebody who's back there that's not expendable
Right.
at a certain point. And I think Jalen Lucas this year will get a lot of game time because hopefully our defense is getting a ton of stops and forcing punts.
That's right.
And so he'll be catching a lot of punts, and hopefully he'll bring a couple to the house and maybe get a couple touches in the backfield. But as a freshman, that's a ton of playing time and a lot of time to see the field and grow into the pace that is Division I Power 5 college football. And I look forward to see what Jalen Lucas can offer us this year.
Oh, yeah, you absolutely have to, especially somebody who was profiled by Bruce Feldman and The Athletic as somebody who could be a game-changing player from the start. Tom Allen's even pointed out Lucas will begin his career in the running back room. Of course, always helps to be coached by Dassan Mccullough.
Yeah.
But Allen has visions of using Lucas all over the field. Go ahead, man.
He reminds me of like what Ohio State will do with just fantastic athletes, where they will line him up in the running back positions at the start of the play. He'll then go to slot receiver. And then by the end of the play, somehow he's 45 yards down the field with a touchdown. You don't know how, you have no idea how he got there. More of like a flex position player. They're going to play him in multiple positions again. And somebody who, if he works out and ends up being a game changer for IU, he can figure out what position he wants to play in the NFL. Eventually, an NFL team will put him in position to be successful. But he's a guy in college that just like in high school is going to play all over the field because he can't keep him off of it.
No, you absolutely can't. You think of somebody who's got game-changing speed, something like what Purdue had with Rondale Moore. It's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but they found creative ways to get more of the ball in his Purdue career. That's something you can expect Indiana's offense under new coordinator Walt Bell to do this upcoming season in the next 2 to 3 years. As far as this class of 22, right? I think the question all Hoosier fans want to know is who's going to make a difference right away. In 2022, we're all about immediate gratification. And the answer normally would be, let's hold off. Let's wait. Okay. Let them grow, let them learn. Might help one redshirt season for a lot of these. No. Absolutely not. Not with this class. You can make an argument for almost every newcomer that he will come in to Memorial Stadium starting week 1 and make a difference on this team. The conversation about redshirting, it is up in the air. Every single newcomer can win playing time in year 1, okay? And I don't even need to start. You talked about it a minute ago. I don't even need to start about trench play. How valuable it is in the Big Ten to have guys that can rush the passer and protect the passer, guys that can create running lanes, and guys that can stuff those carries up the middle or to the outside. And every single trench player that signed on the dotted line either today or who is going to over the next couple of months during this signing period, they can start. Forget playing time. Forget snaps. These guys can start. Nick James out of IMG, if he impresses D-line coach Kevin Peoples, defensive coordinator Charlton Warren, you better believe Nick James can start week 1 against Northwestern. I'm going to use that same argument for everyone else. Benson Snead, if you look at him right now, he's got a body that obviously will always get work, but it's a body that can be ready from the start. I love J.H. Tevis. This was the name that stood out to me as soon as you saw the tweet come out that Tevis committed to Indiana. I believe officially it happened early on Wednesday morning. Pac-12 honorable mention, defensive lineman, can play multiple positions on the D-line, interior, on the outside. Thank you, Lord. I mean, all the linemen, please and thank you. And I'm sure I've missed one or two here, but getting these guys in, you talked about the offensive lineman net earlier, Demon Moore. Yeah, okay. I absolutely think he can start from day 1 if all goes well between now and September. Of course, a lot of variables between now and then. We can see guys transfer in, guys transfer out, other high schoolers sign their letters of intent until February. So still a lot to happen here. But my gosh, man, this isn't a ridiculous opinion, right? Like a lot of these players, and I even went as far as to say every single one can win playing time starting in the fall.
Yeah. And again, we haven't talked enough about Dassan Mccullough, the number one recruit ever to commit to the school.
You're right. We haven't.
And coach's son, and a dude who's just a freak of an athlete and a game changer on the defensive end. Again, like I just mentioned before, J.H. Trevis coming in was an honorable All Pac-12 selection.
Yeah.
And Dassan Mccullough, our defensive line just had a significant upgrade. I don't even know if Dassan Mccullough is going to play defensive line, though, because he could play the Husky position. He could play linebacker. Hell, if you wanted him to play corner, he could probably play corner for you. He's not going to be as good as our corners are.
Right.
But
I see your point.
He can play anywhere on the defensive side of the ball. I'm sure if he could play quarterback, he'd also be playing quarterback. So, again, something I'm super excited to see. Trevell Mullen, Taiwan's younger brother, who's a higher rated recruit than Taiwan, by the way, coming in as a freshman. I'd be interested to see some Mullen and Mullen sets out there with the
nickel or dime package. For sure.
Yeah, that'd be some fun stuff to watch. It's going to be interesting. We're going to have basically an entirely new team next year, which is crazy to think, because this year we were projecting 9-win season this year, 8-win season this year. And then we're having an entirely new season, entirely new team next year. It's going to be kind of crazy. And I really don't know what to expect, if anything at all, out of this team. But it's going to be fun to watch. And hopefully it's not a repeat of last year, because that's going to be tragedy.
Yeah. Hot take there. Look, at the end of the day, for those of you who are looking forward to fall 22, here's a quick rundown of the schedule. Indiana starts with Northwestern at home. That game's in Bloomington. In fact, the first 3 games are in Bloomington. Idaho and Western Kentucky follow. Road trips to Cincinnati and Nebraska follow that. We'll see what Cincinnati's team looks like after their season comes to an end. Got a home game against Maryland in week 6, then a bye. Then you go to Rutgers, to Ohio State, home Penn State, at Michigan, home Michigan State, home Purdue to end the year. So on the surface, an easier schedule.
What are those last 6 games?
That's the last 6 games.
That's a gauntlet. The
last 6 games are Big Ten East coming to bite you in the rear end. But look, that's conversation for the summer and for September. Hoosier football fans in general, you can feel excited. You're perfectly welcome to feel excited. Drop comments in the live chat. We see your activity on social media. Matt, really the last football point I wanted to touch on is this. I almost a touchdown, Freudian said. The last point I wanted to touch on is this. Finally, Indiana has a recruiting class that we look at and say, wow, there's big time stuff. Top 20, best in school history. But how directly does recruiting contribute to winning? This is uncharted territory for IU football. It's a program that is really just groveled in the depths of despair as far as recruiting is concerned. What specific aspect of college football do you think contributes most to winning, between recruiting, player development, game planning, strength of schedule? Talk to me a little bit about how direct recruiting impacts victories on the field.
Well, there's 2 aspects to recruiting. There's 1, recruiting ranking, and 2, recruiting fit. There's not every high school player comes in with a 5-star ranking, but some of them are 5-star recruits because how they fit in the system. For instance, Dassan Mccullough and his ability to be a mobile, very versatile defender.
Right. Mm-hmm.
In our defensive system might as well be a 5-star recruit, because he's going to be able to be plug and play, put him wherever you want. Other people in the past haven't exactly fit the mold. You want to think of any of the 4-star recruits gotten in the last couple of years that transferred?
I remember just one that put his name in the portal recently, linebacker Cam Williams, 4-star linebacker when he came in. Didn't really work out. Probably not somebody who's able to play multiple positions, and that defense, multiple defensive coordinators he had to deal with. A lot of different variables at play.
I'll throw another one out there. Samson James came in 4-star, highly touted recruit, just didn't work out. So there are some X's and O's factors to that, where you have to, he might have talent, but you got to coach him, right? You got to be able to put him in positions to succeed. But I'll give you a quick answer, and it's this. I believe Jimmy's and Joe's beat X's and O's 80% of the time.
Okay.
80% of the time. Now, there are going to be teams that can execute better than more talented teams and beat them. However, if you have more talent on your team and they fit together well, you've recruited them, they fit their position well, they're better players, more often than not, that team is going to win 80% of the time. Alabama ain't no slouch with the X's and O's, but when their X's and O's aren't working, like they wasn't against Auburn, right? They still found a way to win because their Jimmys and Joes are better than Auburn's X's and O's at the end of the day. So IU is in a really good position to have a successful future if they can continue up this level of recruiting. Now, one top 20 class out of the last 3 does not mean you are a top 20 team.
Right.
You have to have top 20 classes over and over and over and over again. So this has to be replicated next year and the year after that. And the year after that, if IU wants to see some gradual continued progress. And there also has to be context to this. Yes, we are 20th in the nation in recruiting class, Nithin, but you know what our rank is in the Big Ten?
4.
I think we're 5th.
Look, it looks like as of right now, it's 4th. Michigan State and Indiana are right there, neck and neck.
We're 4th or 5th. We're still behind the Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn States of the world, and we're tied with Michigan State. And Michigan State probably has had some better classes in the past than we have. So when you're looking at projection, right, we have to play all 4 of those people each year. So the X's and O's really matter because our Jimmys and Joes are not going to be out competing them. Right. And so that's why it was such a big deal to the podcast and all of the IU football world about who was going to be our next offensive coordinator. Are we getting a better offensive line coach? What is working? Who is leaving on the defensive staff? Who is staying? And this stuff is extremely important because a school like ours, while we are slowly growing in the recruiting rankings, still cannot compete with the top teams of the Big Ten because their talent is better than ours. And doesn't matter what the heck we do with our talent, we're not going to be able to catch up to them in the very near future.
7 of the 8 best Big Ten class of 22 recruiting classes all come from the Big Ten East. Even with Indiana's, it's Iowa. Iowa crept in ahead of Rutgers and Maryland.
Yeah.
But still, right? Indiana, top 20, it's all great. But your 6 other divisional foes are all better than the next best Big Ten West team outside of Iowa. So that's something to keep in mind. But of course, when you use the rest of the country as a reference point, Indiana currently ranks better than Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State. Of course, we talked about Iowa. How about Iowa State, Virginia Tech, Oregon, West Virginia, Baylor, et cetera, et cetera.
Better than Oregon. Wow.
Yeah. And that's the point, right? You go back and you look at recruiting classes from 2018, 2017. Okay. You can even fast forward a little bit, 2019, 2020. A lot of schools you see showing up frequently at the top of the rankings not always show up in the top 25 polls, right?
Yeah.
You know, so there is a mix and match. It's not all golden. It's not all sunshine and rainbows just because you land a great recruiting class, right? You talk about LSU, Texas, USC, Florida State, Florida, who had a horrible year, Tennessee, Washington. You know, these are coaches who've been fired. These are coaches who have had tough seasons. Nebraska should be included in this list as well. For top 20 recruiting classes, South Carolina struggles a lot. Stanford has had some bad season recently. They all recruit well, but they don't win. So long story short, yeah, it's a mixture. Recruiting helps. What recruiting does, if you ask me, is it reduces your margin for error, right? You don't have to win everywhere if you have great recruiting classes. If you have a poor recruiting class or an average recruiting class, you have to execute really sharply on the field. You can't commit stupid penalties on the field. You can afford one or two of your coaches going to another school and not seeing a big drop off, like when Kalen DeBoer went from Indiana to Fresno State, is now the head coach of Washington, who, by the way, picked up Michael Penix to be seemingly their starting quarterback for this upcoming fall. So it just reduces your margin for error. Does it guarantee success? Absolutely not. Why is this question important? Well, we asked it in this week's podcast poll, and within an hour, almost 100 votes have come in. And right now it's really close. We asked what specific aspect of the game contributes most to winning. Right now, player development takes the cake at 39%. Recruiting is at 36%. Game planning executions at 17%. Ease of schedule at just 8%. I would tend to agree with the first place option here. I do think player development means more than anything else, but you better believe recruiting helps, and we'll see that impact going forward here in the years to come. Can't wait to see the work Indiana does in the class of 23, 24. By the way, for some of you who are asking, what's going on? Like, how is Indiana a 2-win season but still get a top 20 recruiting class? Because these things are not just a product of wins and losses on the field. It's a product of what you've done over the last 3, 4, 5 years, the continuity in the coaching staff, the investment in the facilities and the coaching staff, the relationships. It's very nebulous, but it's all factors. These are all factors that contribute to a school doing well in recruiting. So exciting times for the football program. They've got to win more on the field, but more answers now. So more clarity here as we work our way into the offseason. And again, some of those surprising commits we mentioned, guys like Nick James, Brody Foley, tight end, Venson Sneed, Jalen Lucas, Jamari Sharp, J.H. Tevis, Josh Henderson, Sean Shivers. These are all players who I don't think were part of the plan a couple of weeks ago. So it's exciting to see them on board.
Yeah, but you know what's crazy? The difference between IU and let's say like a Texas A&M, right, who has the number one class in the country. IU has one top 100 recruit. We are extremely happy about that.
Yeah.
Texas A&M has 13 top 100 recruits. Geez. 13. So again, it helps to have good recruiting momentum. But there's got to be some results on the field. Texas A&M has had some results recently on the field that shows that Jimbo Fisher has got that program kind of going in the right direction. Though this year was a bit of a slip up. Again, doesn't really matter. Again, remember, like we had a slip up this year. So did Texas A&M in the same kind of way. Not 2-10.
State. Yeah.
Not 2-10. Texas A&M didn't have a 2-10 season, but they had a down season for them. You can recover from that if you've had prior results that proved the opposite.
Right. It's a great example. Yeah.
But if Texas A&M has another 8-4 year next year, right? They're not gonna have a number one in the class. IU's gonna be the same way. You can't go into next year
4-8,
and have a 4-8 season. Yeah. You can live with a 6-6 season.
Sure.
You can you can be happy or ecstatic with a 7-5, 8-4 season next year. Anything less than that and recruiting momentum, recruiting momentum can completely halt.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Texas A&M example is a good one. It's not just a 1-year vacuum. So those are the kind of things that affect recruiting results. It's not just a 1-year snapshot. So that's what's going on in football. You better believe there's going to be a lot more coming down the pipeline here over the next 2 months. Transfer portal is always changing. Additional high school news can come through. So make sure you stay tuned to Indiana HQ and the Hoosier Sound for everything. Before we switch gears to basketball, to men's basketball, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. I mean, look at Mackenzie Holmes, the junior forward out of the state of Maine, scored her 1,000th career point in Indiana's convincing victory on the road at number 20, Ohio State in Columbus. The Hoosiers, number 10 in the AP, pulled their only 2 losses are to really good North Carolina State and a really good Stanford. Plenty to play for still for the IU women's basketball program. UConn is struggling. Indiana was right there against NC State, right there against Stanford. This Hoosiers women's program can make the Final Four and they can win it all. So buckle up and just watch out for what can happen the rest of the year. The Hoosiers should stock up on some wins here, should bank some wins over the next few weeks before a big-time showdown against Maryland at Assembly Hall early January. That should be an absolutely mouth-watering matchup. I believe it will be televised on ESPN2. I should double-check that and not just spontaneously say things. But Mackenzie Holmes deserves all the credit in the world. She's one of the biggest reasons this women's basketball program has elevated to the level it has. She also dropped a game high total against the Buckeyes, scoring over 25 points in that contest. So shout out to Mackenzie Holmes. She won the week this past week in IU Sports. If you would like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. If you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. So, Matt, men's basketball went 1-1 this past week. Since our last episode, they lost at Wisconsin. We're not going to beat a dead horse, rehash all the nightmares from that game that blew a 20-point lead. 64-59, the final in Madison. Badgers got the victory, but the Hoosiers got up off the mat. A little bit of a sluggish start, but they eventually dominated Merrimack 81-49. The margin of victory matters. And for that reason, Indiana bumped all the way up to 26 in the most recent KenPom ratings. Your high-level thoughts, Matt, on Indiana's 1-1 week. By the way, Wisconsin right now trailing at halftime at home to Nicholls State. What are your thoughts on Indiana's 1-1 week?
Yeah, it's not making me feel any better, Nithin. No, that Wisconsin game was completely and utterly unacceptable result. You can't be up 20 plus and blow a lead like that. And then the same can be said with the Syracuse loss. You can't get down 20 points and expect to win a game. And then the most recent basketball game was fun to watch.
Yeah.
So to be honest, I think this team has some growing pains. Again, I'm gonna warrant the fact that this team hadn't faced any adversity at all through the start of the season.
Right.
Again, the first 7 games basically were cakewalks, and then the first 5 games, I guess, were cakewalks, and then they had 3 exhibition games in which they stomped.
Yeah.
So they hadn't received any pushback at all. This Wisconsin team played very well to come back, but IU completely lost that game. That is a game that IU lost single-handedly by themselves.
I completely agree. That was Wisconsin just played. They competed, which is great, but Indiana gave that game away. But great to see the Hoosiers bounce back against Merrimack. I'm not even sure if I can count this as adversity just yet. As we have seen in previous seasons, let's see what happens when you start stringing together 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games against top 40 opponents, because that's what happens in the Big Ten. Yeah. The fun doesn't start just yet. Indiana does play Notre Dame coming up on Saturday. Notre Dame team that did beat Kentucky. We're going to preview Notre Dame in just a minute. But overall, I'm encouraged by what I saw because I'm a numbers guy, and the numbers tell me that for about 25 minutes, Indiana dominated Wisconsin at Kohl Center.
Yeah.
And it wasn't close. It really wasn't. And then Indiana got in their head a lot bit, and relapsed into some horrible habits. And probably, as Xavier Johnson said post-game, that Wisconsin streak was something that was on their conscience going into that game. They were aware of the magnitude of what this particular game meant. But the reason the computers have Indiana higher right now than they've had Indiana at any point in the season is Indiana dominated Wisconsin for 25 minutes, and Indiana ultimately dominated Merrimack by 32 points. None of this matters in the big picture. At the end of the day, Indiana's got to string together wins in the Big Ten. You've got to finish over 500 in Big Ten play. But IU is still showing me a lot more good than bad to this point.
I agree. Look, Trace hasn't been playing up to the par in which he set at the beginning of the year, and we still were up 20-something at Wisconsin. He needed to demand the ball more at the end of that game. He is a leader on this team, and I think he'll look back on that game and he'll blame himself for that game because he needed the ball. This team, the offense is infinitely better when Trace touches the ball. And in the last 5 minutes of that game, Trace barely touched the ball, maybe 2 possessions the last 5 minutes of that game. Completely and utterly unacceptable. That game should have been put out of reach in the first 10 minutes of the second half. They didn't do that. We still should have won the game, toughed it out in the last 10 minutes of the half. Didn't do that. Why? Because our best player didn't get the ball. And there was a lot of violence, verbal violence on Twitter towards Xavier Johnson.
Too much.
It was over the top. I get you're frustrated. I get you literally saw a baby shot in front of you, basically, and watching IU's streak in Wisconsin continue in such terrible fashion.
Horrible.
I understand you saw a hate crime in front of you, basically. I get what you saw. It was
tweet less, guys.
It was not okay what you tweeted at Xavier Johnson. All right,
or even mentioned
he's not a selfish player. He's not all this.
What are you guys doing?
He came in here to this program to be a scorer. All right, and he saw the ability to get to the basket in a big game, in a prime moment in which Trace wasn't demanding the ball.
Someone's got to take over.
Somebody has to do something, right? And he tried, all right? And look, the end result was abysmal, all right? But he will learn from that. And it's not the end of the world that we lost to a decent Wisconsin team. Now, I'm praying.
You're absolutely right.
I'm praying to the good Lord Jesus above that they don't lose at home to who are they even playing?
Nichols State.
Okay.
Nichols out of the Southland Conference.
Please don't do this to us. Wisconsin, just play well for the rest of the year. Because I feel like that'll actually be a decent loss. Yes, they got their butts kicked by Ohio State earlier this week. That's fine. Ohio State's going to
We'll see, Matt. I don't know. I'm not sure that Wisconsin team is all that good. I'm not sure there are all that many good teams in the Big Ten outside of Purdue. We obviously know how great Purdue is.
Yeah.
Michigan State, I think, has announced themselves pretty clearly. And I'm still a believer in Michigan. Although Michigan, Indiana's got a bank wins in the Big Ten. And at the bottom line, at the end of the day, if that Wisconsin loss offered a lot of teaching moments, then all things are smooth sailing going forward.
Yes.
But here's the deal. Indiana, this is a sign of a good team. A lot of blowout wins and a couple of narrow losses. By and large, that's the recipe for a great team. And you may look at me stupid when I say that, but historically speaking, that's the kind of thing that you look for. And of course, Indiana's 2 losses this year, both true road games, close loss at Syracuse in double overtime, the close loss at Wisconsin. Otherwise, convincing victories all around, except the Marshall game. Indiana beat Louisiana by 32. For example, Louisiana went to Houston this past weekend. It was a 15-point loss for Louisiana. Houston's a top 25 team. So you can do these sort of things. This is what computers are doing in the background as far as reference points and as far as ranking teams from 1 to 351 on the season. Yeah, Nichols State is something like 260 in the KenPom ratings. So yeah, Big Ten fans don't want Wisconsin to lose that game. My one question to you is this. You've seen 10 games so far. Indiana's 8-2. Is there one player? I'm going to ask you for one player on each side. Give me one player that you think is about to heat up, rest of season. One player that you think maybe the first 10 games, a bit of a feeling out process. Rest of season, one player that you think will heat up. And then on the flip side, one player that you think has had a really good 10-game stretch to start the season, but the rest of the way maybe won't make as significant of an impact.
That's tough. I think heat up. It's hard to say he'll heat up, but I think he'll make his way back into the rotation after injury. I think Trey Galloway was a very important piece in what made this team work at the beginning of the year.
I like that.
And his ability to be a creator off the ball and with the ball as not a point guard is what allowed him to get into the rotation in the first place. His passing and his cutting and his off the ball work really is not something that we have on this team currently, and is something that's needed in this offense, especially in the second unit. So I like to see him to get a bit more. And then the person that's going to probably lose some minutes with that is Anthony Leal. And that's no fault of his own, but that's because that position, that skill group is so packed.
There's correlation there, right? If Trey
Yeah.
Galloway plays more, probably means Anthony Leal plays less. I see what you're saying.
I could also, by the way, see somebody like Miller Kopp maybe getting some minutes taken away if Anthony Leal starts to play well. But and there's like a whole, it's a calculus with this group because again, you have to add in the fact that Mike Woodson likes to play lines, right? This is not something. It's almost like what Kentucky did with Calipari did with the platoons, where he has one group of 5 that plays together and then another group of 5 that plays together, and occasionally he'll mix up the lineups and put some people together. But it's usually the first unit plays for like the first 8 minutes, and then the second unit comes in and plays for 8 minutes, and then the first unit comes back and plays for another 4. It's very NBA style in that way. I don't know if that the minutes. Forget that, but you get what I mean. They come in and play for chunks together. And so somebody I'd like to see step up as the year goes on, and somebody I'd like to see grow into his role is somebody like Tamar Bates, because I think Tamar can work his way into the starting lineup. We've seen him show flashes of brilliance. I would like to see him be more consistent as the year goes on. And the second person is Jordan Geronimo, somebody who had a fantastic game last game, 13 and 13. Somebody I can definitely see grow into a role as a 6th or 7th guy off the bench with Tamar Bates.
I love Tamar Bates, Matt. I love that call. I think he's somebody you're going to see make a much bigger difference for this team from this point forward. 2022 Tamar Bates is going to be a different player than 2021 Tamar Bates. Right now, Bates is at 6.7 points per game, 1.5 rebounds, not even an assist. And understandably, it's because there's a feeling out process. True freshman, first 10 games. Of course, Bates is committed to Texas for a while. It's sort of a baptism by fire here at Indiana anyway. If a starter is unable to play for injury or for whatever other reason, and if Tamar Bates gets one start, I think you might see him turn that into 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even more starts down the line. So Tamar Bates is my guy that I think could very well catch fire the rest of the way. I see a lot of good things when I see him play. And he's exactly the kind of person who, right, it's on the staff to pull him back, right? And the staff is going to have to earn their paychecks, Woodson, Fife, Hunter, Roseman. When Bates has a game where it's not there, to pull Bates back a little bit. So that's what I'm looking for out of a player that I think will accelerate. As far as a player that I think might cool off a little, I think Indiana's relied on Xavier Johnson a little too much through the first 10 games. I'm looking forward to seeing the coaching staff find ways to have other players initiate offense going forward here. It's all such a new environment, new conditions. It's a completely new team, basically, from what you saw last year outside of a few guys. So I think you might see a little bit less out of Xavier Johnson. He's also shooting 46% from 3, and I think that'll tone down a little bit too. So you might see some more Rob Finney, and I know Hoosier fans want to see more out of Christian Lander. We'll see what Mike Woodson does over the course of the rest of the year. So those are some guys we've pinpointed as maybe look out for, or maybe overachieving just a little bit right here.
I have a galaxy brain roster idea.
Oh my gosh.
And that is, why do we need to start a point guard?
You gotta start one, man. This Xavier Johnson has shown he's capable of starting. What's your alternative here? Tamar Bates instead?
Tamar Bates instead of Miller Kopp, and then you
Okay.
put in Trey Galloway.
Oh wow. So you're saying start Galloway, Stewart,
Yep,
Bates, Thompson, and Jackson Davis?
correct.
Wow. Look, the one thing I think you can say with this coaching staff is they're not afraid of mixing things up. You've seen Xavier Johnson and Rob Finney play together this year. You've seen games where Christian Lander's been a big part of the equation, where he's not been a part of the equation. Jordan Geronimo was the hot hand against Merrimack, and the coaching staff rode with him in the second half and said, look, you've earned your minutes, and Geronimo made it work. He got 13 and 13. So I think Xavier Johnson, Rob Finney, and Christian Lander all off the bench creates a logjam. So we'll see. My X factor going forward here is Anthony Leal. I don't know what the coaching staff's plan is with Anthony Leal here, because every minute he's played by and large has been a good minute.
Yeah.
The offense is there. The defense is coming along. You absolutely know that against zone defenses, that three-point shot is lethal. It looks cleaner and purer than it ever has. I don't know what the game plan is with Anthony Leal, but time will tell here over the course of the next couple of months.
Yeah, my galaxy brain idea, my crazy idea, is for games in which Xavier Johnson is having, like he had at Wisconsin, where he's 1 of 13, and you're like, oh, Xavier, like
somebody's got to,
you are tilted out of your mind. You need to chill out. We'll give you some rest this game. Like it's just it's just not working, right? And so for those times it's not working, I would love to see Galloway come in and kind of play a bigger, more switchable lineup. Because I look at that defensive set and you go, Stewart's done a very good job of keeping people in front of him. Tamar Bates has some times where he's a freshman and out over jump stuff, but when he's not, because like last game, right, he had some defensive lapses, but when he buckled down in the second half and wasn't trying as hard, I thought he had some decent moments on defense. And then we know Trey Galloway is a good defender and very switchable. So those three guys together, I think, could compete with any lineup you throw out there in the Big Ten as far as on the defensive end, because they're going to be able to guard every single position, all three of them. And then you add in Race Thompson being the disruptor and Trace Jackson Davis being the shot blocker at the end. So even if you get past those first three, you still have to deal with the monsters that we have underneath the basket. So I really, really like this idea of bringing back Trey Galloway. Now, of course, this is all, there's an asterisk.
Sure.
How healthy and how much of the Trey Galloway that we saw in the first 5 games was because he was healthy and because we were playing worse opponents. Now we have to see it against Big Ten opponents and see how he comes back from injury. Of course, he was doing a lot more on the court, by the way,
he was
before the last game. So we might be able to see him play against Notre Dame in some limited minutes, possibly, or the next game after that. So we shall see here maybe shortly in the future.
Yeah.
If my galaxy brain is correct.
Well, look, Galaxy Brain Man is a whole different man as listeners to this podcast have grown to love. Mike Woodson has media availability, I believe, on Thursday. So we'll see if any questions, any answers come from that session. If not, based on the original timeline after Galloway's injury, the aggressive part of that timeline could lead to Galloway seeing the court against Notre Dame. Of course, if you do some schedule analysis here, Indiana has 2 cupcakes after Notre Dame. It may make more sense to hold him out until January 2nd at Penn State. It's all up to Mike Woodson and the staff, as well as Galloway's comfort level from that wrist injury against St. John's. So that's where Indiana stands against 8-2. And I can't emphasize this enough. From what we've seen around college basketball, the fact that Indiana has protected their home court and has not lost to a bad team, knock on wood, with 2 cupcakes left, that's meaningful. Okay, I'm not saying it means, throw a parade. Definitely don't. But it is meaningful going into this Notre Dame matchup on Saturday. We're going to get to that in a second. But first, it's time for a social media shout out. And Matt, Indiana's going to play in the Crossroads Classic one last time. But then they agreed with the University of Kansas for a home-and-home series. How excited are you to see the Hoosiers and the Jayhawks switch off between Assembly Hall and Allen Fieldhouse?
This is exactly what a program like IU needs to sell to people to come to the school. Michigan State has an up on Indiana because they play in that
Champions
Classic. So they play one of Kentucky or Duke or who's the other one that's in there? Kansas. They play them once every year to start the season. And it's on TV. It's on national television. The parents of the team get flown out.
Madison Square Garden or Indianapolis.
It's somewhere in the country with a great basketball venue with a bunch of great basketball schools. IU needs to get back to that, but even more so, they need to show off Assembly Hall to the masses.
Thank you. Please.
Because we all know and love Assembly Hall, but I'm telling you, people in my town in Florida, they remember the Watt shot.
Right.
But the Watt shot was almost 10 years ago.
Literally 10 years in
10 years
5 days.
now.
Yeah.
So IU needs not the new Watt shot, but they need a better marketing campaign is what I'm saying for the school, because kids growing up now, they've seen the highlights of the Watt shot, but that's all they know Indiana about.
Give me something new. Give me something fresh.
Kids in Texas don't know about, the 2002 Indiana team. Kids in Texas don't even know who Steve Alford is, other than he's what is he? Nevada's head coach now.
Yeah.
Like that's who they know him as. They don't know him as the guy who led Indiana to the 1987 national championship game. The only thing I can tell you that people universally know about IU is they know Isaiah Thomas and they know Coach Bob Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, right? And so IU needs to get back in the focus. We need people in California who are bored on a Saturday afternoon to turn on their TV on CBS and see IU playing Kansas at Assembly Hall and go, maybe I'll give this to watch. And then they watch and they go, these fans are insane. This is fun to watch. We need that back in Assembly Hall. Look, Big Ten conference play, that's great. We get that every year, but we need some high marquee level matchups in Assembly Hall. Heck, I'll go and play in Vegas if you want us to.
Okay.
Right. But we need IU on national television more because that's what will elevate the program to the next level. We've been stuck in the what is the mediocre style of college basketball non-conference play, which is you play 10 sub 200 opponents and you play 3 mediocre Power 5 teams and then you start Big Ten play. None of that.
And with the Crossroads Classic, I think Indiana and Purdue were expecting Butler and Notre Dame to be better than they have over the last 5 years.
Butler's been fine. It's Notre Dame.
It's both though, Matt, because when this agreement came through to start the Crossroads Classic, right? It was Brad Stevens, Matt Howard, Gordon Hayward, and Ronald Noren, and these really great Butler teams. And now Butler's struggling, right? They're struggling. They're a bubble team constantly. They're probably not making the NCAA tournament this year, even though they went to Oklahoma and won. It's not probably happening for Butler. May not happen for Notre Dame either. Kansas locks in big-time opponent. It is a Saturday game, as you pointed out. December 17th, 2022 at Allen Fieldhouse. December 16th, 2023 at Assembly Hall. So for those of you who are current freshmen or sophomores at IU, you will be able to see this game as a student after finals week comes to a conclusion. So looking ahead to that series, it's an 8-6 series lead for Kansas all time, and that includes an 8-6 lead for Indiana all time, and that includes 2 wins in the 1940 and 1953 NCAA championship games over Kansas. So you can see more info on that over on IUHoosiers.com. They have you covered, and all you need to know about that series is available on Twitter at Indiana HQ. We're also Indiana HQ on Facebook and on YouTube, but on Instagram, Matt, we're not Indiana HQ. What are we?
We're Indiana.HQ.
That's right, Indiana.HQ.
Can I give an honorable social media shout out?
Yeah.
So I know we shouted out Ant Wright. Congratulations for him joining on3.com. Now, I was perusing on3.com today, and we were talking about recruiting rankings earlier. We're talking about football now, recruiting rankings for basketball. Now, somebody might know his name is Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Oh.
Is number 9 overall on the on3.com, and Ant Wright has a lot of nice things to say about him, since Ant Wright is a national college basketball recruiting contributor now for On3, and had a ton of nice things to say about Jalen Hood-Schifino. So I'm very excited to see him in a Hoosiers uniform next year, along with Tamar Bates and the rest of the crew. So look out for that, and go give On3 a follow on Twitter.
Yes, sir. That pushes us forward into this game on Saturday as Indiana takes on Notre Dame at 2:30 Eastern in the Crossroads Classic finale at Bankers Life. It's not called that anymore. Green. Give me a second.
We can call it Bankers Life. It's fine. We know what you're talking about. What is with people? Oh they should legally be unable to change the name of arenas or football stadiums. And once it is named, that is what it is named for all time. Sun Life Stadium in Miami has changed name 12 times. I still remember when it was Joe Robbie Stadium. Okay. It's changed names about 12 times. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis.
Ugh.
Indianapolis. Neutral site game for IU, but you expect Hoosier fans will win the crowd advantage there. It's a 2:30 Eastern start on Fox Saturday afternoon. Tim Brando and Jim Jackson on the call. I love that broadcast duo. That's going to be a great cover on Saturday afternoon. Indiana is favored by 3 per KenPom, 71-68. Notre Dame has had a weird season. A lot of disappointing losses at the start of the year, but to generally good teams. And then on Saturday, they went and knocked off Kentucky in South Bend. You probably can expect John Calipari to never walk into the Joyce Center again. But anyway, Notre Dame is the 51st ranked team in the KenPom ratings. They have the 25th ranked offense in the country, 109th ranked defense. Their pace is pretty slow at 261 in college basketball. Indiana is 26th in KenPom, worse offense, rated 56th, much better defense, rated 17th. Matt, the key players on this Notre Dame team are Dane Goodwin, Blake Wesley, Nate Lashevsky, Paul Atkinson, Prentice Hub. What should Hoosier fans know about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
They're a good team. They've underperformed so far this year, but they're a decent team. Now, again, it's the same reason why you want out of the Crossroads Classic, and that's because they're a decent team, but they're not. IU's going to play 9 teams in the Big Ten, I think, that are better than Notre Dame. So they're better than Nebraska. But it's not hard to be better than Nebraska as a Power 5 college basketball team, or even Power 6, I guess you can call it in college basketball. But it's not that hard. They're not near the level of a St. John's team that we beat, I don't think. I don't think they're better than Syracuse. I think Syracuse probably place above them in the ACC. So is this a quality win?
It is funny because KenPom does have Notre Dame higher than St. John's and Syracuse, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's tried and true, right? It's not etched in stone. You can definitely see Notre Dame be a tougher matchup for Indiana or an easier matchup for Indiana than the other 2 teams that you mentioned.
I think if you have to point out one player on Notre Dame I find interesting, it's Blake Wesley. Again, a former Indiana target. Just hit a huge shot in their previous game.
He did.
And has been playing pretty well for a freshman. Again, somebody that I thought we really missed out on and would have been fun to watch in an Indiana uniform. So Hopefully he does decent things for the Irish when they're not playing Indiana.
Well, we've seen this before, right, Matt? I mean,
Yeah.
Indiana targets always come back to bite Indiana in the
Jaden
backside, it
Ivey.
seems like.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Notre Dame had a couple of neutral losses in the Maui Invitational in Las Vegas to St. Mary's and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Close-ish loss at Illinois, 10-point defeat at the other Assembly Hall, aka State Farm Center. The worst loss for Notre Dame was a 16-point defeat at Boston College, a Boston College team that followed up that win with the home loss to Albany earlier this week. But overall, the computers like Notre Dame's talent. They like what they're seeing out of the Fighting Irish. They like the style that they play. Notre Dame takes a lot of threes, and the computers basically say, look, Notre Dame, they take a lot of threes, have good shooters, but this year they're only shooting 29% from deep. So that's due to go up. And I think that's the key number to look at on Saturday afternoon. Can Indiana limit the number of threes Notre Dame takes? Notre Dame's 3-point rate, not 3-point percentage, but 3-point rate is about 44%, which means out of every 100 shots they take, 44 come from beyond the arc. And so over the course of a game, if Notre Dame takes 50 shots, you want to see them take less than 25 3-pointers, ideally even less than 20. If Indiana can keep Notre Dame's 3-point attempts to less than 20, not makes, just attempts, that'll be a good sign for the Hoosiers because IU's got to guard the perimeter in this matchup. We've talked about a couple of the key players to look out for. Dane Goodwin is a sharpshooter from deep. He's a 40% 3-point maker on about 5 attempts per game. Prentice Hub is one of the most intriguing cases across the entire college basketball spectrum. Somebody who was a double-digit scorer last year, as well as the previous season. He has hit iceberg levels of cold this current college basketball campaign. And there are two sides to this, right? It's either, Prentice Hub just regressed and he's not that great and it is whatever, right? It's something you've seen for a couple of high football players this year, just having a nightmare season. Or Prentice Hub is just waiting to catch fire. And Notre Dame is treaded water while Prentice Hub is really struggling, shooting like 18% from three and like 27% from the field. And he just needs that one good game to drop 25. Matt, considering all of this, what is one key number, one key matchup you're looking at as Indiana tries to knock off the Fighting Irish and get to 9-2?
The one you just brought up. Is Prentice Hub still playing awful? Because if the answer is yes, IU's going to win this game by
double figures.
15.
Yeah.
If he's not, I'm going to cry. So I really hope that IU can finish off the Crossroads Classic with a dub, and then Butler can go and upset Purdue like they always do. And we can move on from the Crossroads Classics happy,
on our face,
smiling, feeling good about ourselves leading into the holidays.
Oh, jeez.
So Prentice Hub's numbers really are if he shoots north of 30% from three this game, I'm gonna say we're cursed. That's it. Because he has not been playing well, and of course he'll play better when they play IU. It's just what happens. Just what happens.
It's stunning to see the drop off from Hub this year, but of course, like I said, two schools of thought: either he's regressed or he's about to catch fire. Of course, when you beat a team like Kentucky, that could be a spark that really gives a jolt to Hub. He came off the bench against Kentucky, though, 2 points, 1 of 6 from the field. It'll be interesting to see how IU matches up against him and the rest of the team. Matt, give me one player for Indiana that you're looking to step up in this game and then a prediction. Who wins and by how much?
Player to step up, I think Jordan Geronimo needs to step up again in this game.
Nice.
I would say Trace, but I think Trace knows that, and that's the
obvious
one.
He's automatic. Yeah,
he needs to step up in every game. Right?
Right.
Like, we can't win if he doesn't have a good game.
Right.
And then look, I need a repeat performance from Jordan Geronimo because he's at this point it's getting exciting what I'm seeing from him, but I want it to be consistent. So I would like to see him step up and offer some of the rebounding help because again, this is a team that has had struggles with rebounding, and he can stay within his own game in the offense and just play like an athlete and not force shots because we know he can shoot it. We've seen it. The form looks good. If he can just stay within the flow of the offense, play his game, be a disruptor on the defensive end and get rebounds. Like that's all we're asking from him, because his minutes are going to be very important to give people like Race and Trace a bit of rest, because they're going to need it as it's a really long season.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to think along the same lines, maybe just less exciting of an answer. Race Thompson. To me, Notre Dame is a team that guards the perimeter really well. You've seen Race Thompson this year contribute in many different facets of the game, and I think you'll need to see him do that on Saturday. You're going to need to see him make a couple and ones. You're going to need to see him get a few second chance points. You're going to need to see him with some big to big passes to Trace, or kick it across the court to the wings or to the corners to find an open shooter.
Right.
You're going to need to see him steal one or two balls in this game, or you just see him block one or two shots. It's going to be a Race Thompson, Draymond Green-esque type performance from him if Indiana's going to win. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Matt, I've got Indiana winning this one in a low-scoring contest, 66-59. How about you?
70-55 IU. And I'm going to be disappointed if it's anything less.
Ooh, all right. Well,
by the way, I got the Wisconsin prediction correct. I was not only extremely close in the final score, but I was also extremely close in the margin in which Wisconsin won. So at the end of the day, I was not severely disappointed by that loss because it made me look smart.
You're expecting devastation.
Yes.
That's exactly what
Precisely.
you got. Any final thoughts as we wind down here on this jam-packed mid-December episode, Matt? Lots going on in the IU sports world. What's on your mind here as we close shop?
Yeah, quick overall recap. IU football, recruiting, great. Performance on the field, bad. Needs to be better next year. I think it will be better next year. I think they'll figure it out. I believe in the new coaching staff-ish. I guess I kind of believe. I don't know copium. Basketball, disappointing week overall. I think Wisconsin still leaves a bitter taste in our mouth, but that's only in the way in which they lost the game, because they were playing very well in that game at one point. They just need to figure out how to put two halves together. I feel like we've said that for like the last year and a half about this, 2, 3, 4 years about this team.
Yeah.
I believe in Mike Woodson to get that fixed. That's not going to be the end of the world. Looking forward to a good game against Notre Dame. And if I had told you at the beginning of the year, what are we, 8-2, 9-2 at this point?
8-2, yeah.
If we were 8-2 at this point, with our only 2 losses being in double overtime on the road to Syracuse in a game in which Jimmy Boeheim goes insane,
Ridiculous.
and then we were up 22, but eventually lost to Wisconsin, and we played very well. And players other than Trace Jackson Davis stepped up away from home, and he just had a really bad game towards the end. I don't think you would have taken it at the beginning of the year, because we beat all the teams we're supposed to beat. We beat a really good St. John's team at home to start the year. I like where this basketball program is at. And the fact that we're even disappointed about that we could have been undefeated, because we had like 3 or 4 bounces for being undefeated, is a good thing. This is a good direction in which the basketball program, because remember, we are 2 years removed from losing at home to Indiana State. We are not that far away. 3 years away from being 4 years?
5 years.
But then we lose to IPF. We are disappointing losses, disappointing win streaks, disappointment. All right, we're less than a year away from utter and complete disappointment in the basketball program.
Well, less than a year from your coach getting fired.
Yeah. So this is a good turnaround. We're happy with this. This is all fine.
Yeah. Here's the deal, though. Indiana basketball, men's basketball, you've got to get fat now. Because January 20th is the day that everyone needs to circle. Because things change drastically as far as strength of schedule starting January 20th. Because then you got Purdue, and then you got Michigan, and then you gotta have to go to Maryland. I know Maryland's struggling, you gotta go to Maryland. Illinois,
so bad.
At Northwestern, better than expected. At Michigan State, Wisconsin again, at Ohio State. Look, January 20th, things change. So get fat now. Indiana, pretty reasonably speaking, should be 15-2 or 14-3 when we fast forward to January 19th. Let's see if Mike Woodson and the staff can make that happen. But that won't be decided tonight. that about wraps it up for our 230th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, Indiana HQ, to find it all, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see